Hello and welcome to today's session of Inner Evolution. I am Dayo Samuel, and today we are looking at personal evolution model for self-actualization. Now, the Inner Evolution series is an adventure to help you begin to self-actualize. And so, in the previous lesson, we covered a couple of important subjects. Today, we want to move forward by looking at the personal evolution model, particularly the one that I developed that has helped quite a number of persons. And I wanted to share that with you today. So if you are live here with me right now, say I am live in the comments. Let me know that you're live in the comments. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me see if I need to adjust my settings a bit. And more importantly, today I noticed that the stream was kind of blurry. Why I didn't know until it took someone to call my attention to that I didn't know, and that was even after the stream had ended. So right about now, I want to quickly jump into the stream myself and check for if the stream is clear. So if the stream is clear, if the video is clear today, please let me know. Please let me know. So I'm checking it out right now and viewing the stream. So if hey Bisolas, and welcome. Um so I need to ensure that this is clearer today. Why it was blurry, I really sincerely I don't know why it was blurry the other time. So today I'm trying to see if I can improve what's going on. This is why it's good to do live sometime anyway. So hopefully this is clearer. I'm going to let me see if I can adjust some of the things here. Welcome. And I hope your network is neater today. I hope your network is better today, Bisola. Hope your network is not as jittery as yesterday. So I'm looking at the stream here. It's still not as clear as I want. Sincerely, I don't know why. I don't know why it's still not clear. So maybe I should jump back to, let me see. Let me see if I can take it to the midway. If middle here is fine. The idea is to make this clear enough for you. Why it's not clear, I am yet to know. So again, just as I started earlier on, you're welcome to day 2 of Inner Evolution series. Today, I'm sharing with you the personal evolution model that I developed. And so I'm going to end that, and then I'm going to try again and see what happens. I've done this before, and it was clear. So I'm wondering why it's... Oh, thank God, Bisola, your network is better today. So, Bisola, just to take a little feedback from you, is the video clear over there? Is the video clear where you are right now? And want to be sure that all the entire setting, that everything is looking fine. And by clear, I mean it's visible, it's clean enough for you to see, not wobbly like what I'm seeing right now. To me here, it's looking very wobbly here on my device. On my phone here, you can, if you look at my phone here, you see that it's not looking very clean. So, so um, I don't just want to continue because I don't want to assume that the network is that clear. I need it to truly be clear. I don't know, maybe it's my network. I don't know, maybe it's the stream itself. I happen to not know what's going on. I've tested everything I need to test. I even tested the stream yesterday and everything was clean and clear. So I'm wondering why now it's not as clear as it was. And right about now, so let's get started with today's session. Today we are looking at, this is the day 2, or this is, and today we are looking specifically at the personal evolution model for self-actualization. This is so that you can begin to elevate your own consciousness, so that you can begin to elevate the kind of results that you want to create. And if my video is not clear enough, I might have to take myself off the screen, or have to reduce myself to a little this is by the I'm going to reduce it to a little video by the corner, so that the video then doesn't become problematic. Anyway, so let's quickly look at what I call the personal evolution model. And if you remember yesterday, we discussed quite a couple of things. Today, I want to start with the personal evolution model. And what I want you to first of all notice with what I call the personal evolution model is what I refer to as programming or conditioning. And programming or conditioning simply refers to how you were trained, how you were the kind of people who undo you, the kind of people who programmed you to be who you are right now. And so when we talk about programming, conditioning comes from a psychological concept from the field of psychology, which is something that you habituate, which is something that you practice over time, and then you become used to that thing. And in my own experience and in my studies of how people become who they are, I found that people's programming, people's conditioning starts somewhere, and then it has stages and it has levels where people get started from. And while there is conditioning, there's also levels, and for each level there's also characteristics. So today I'm going to be walking you through this personal evolution model with the hope that this is going to help you break through whatever it is you feel is holding you back. Now, when we talk about programming or conditioning, the first thing, the first programming and conditioning you get to have immediately you are given birth to, immediately you come to this earth, immediately you come to this life. The first programming you get introduced to is the programming that comes from your family. See, and the family is the most important nation on earth, right? The family is the most important system in any human existence. But the interesting thing is that the family conditions a human being the deepest. And when I say the deepest, I mean someone from outside of your family can tell you things and you will decide to discard it. But if somebody in your family tells you something, it will affect you at a very deep level. And what I found is, as soon as a child is given birth to, the conditioning that the child first receives, especially within the first 7 years of that child's life, comes from the family. Now, after the child begins to grow up in that family, the programming begins, they begin to program that child. So, for example, you notice that The children of rich people don't try to be rich, they don't hustle to be rich. Because of the programming and the conditioning they came into, they naturally are just rich. They naturally are just wealthy. They don't struggle, they don't hustle to be wealthy. They wealthy. But on the other side, people who come from poor families or families that don't manage their finances, that don't handle their finances well, you find out that children that come from such families get to struggle a lot. Why? Because there's a programming that was installed in the child as soon as the child enters this earth. And so your family creates the first programming you will ever have in your life. And when I talk about programming, I'm referring to rules, principles, laws, algorithm, meta programs that are running internally inside of you. Now, after family, the next one that happens, especially if that child is born into a religious family, the next thing that happens is they introduce the religion to the child. I mean, even before a child is 1 year old or 2 years old, they quickly introduce religion to the child. So they start teaching the child how to pray, start teaching the child how to say amen, or how to say hallelujah, or how to say Allah, or how to say alhamdulillah, creating religion into that child's human experience. And what do you find? Of course, the child then begins to enter into the programming. If the family has a faulty religious programming, the child just immediately enters into it without questioning. Then you find that the next thing that happens is learning conditioning. And when I say learning conditioning starts as soon as a child is born. In fact, from 2 months old of a child, the child begins to learn from the family. But in the sense of learning in this case, as soon as the child begins to grow, perhaps maybe past some months, they begin to integrate that child into some learning programs such that they will now want to make that child to learn by all means. Such that they now want the child to learn by all means. And when the child begins to enter into learning, now the learning could happen in school, it could happen outside of school. But then the learning programming also will be dependent on the quality of learning the parents themselves have. So if they don't have correct learning programs installed in themselves, they will teach the child what they have known. And in fact, when we talk about learning, I hope you understand that education, going to school, is not exactly learning. In fact, reading a book does not result in learning. In fact, taking a course does not result in learning. Learning only happens when your mind is opened. I once saw the definition of education as the opening of the mind. That is, whenever you are educated, your mind becomes opened. So you begin to see endless possibilities. And when that doesn't happen, what has happened is you have been schooled. Anytime you go through a program, a training, a learning program, a learning experience, and you can only see the options the learning program, what has happened is you have simply been schooled. When you are schooled in the understanding of the person who is schooling you. So they school you so that you can behave a certain way. They school you so that you can act a certain way, not so that you can do much more than the person who is schooling you. Are you with me? So moving on from there, the next level is the next programming that happens is the programming that starts from the society. Now, of course, our environment determine a lot. Our environment determine a lot of what and who we will become. Many times, a lot of people don't pay attention. They don't pay attention to the environments they find themselves in, and so they get to see that all kind of things take place in the environment, and they are just part of that environment, just like that. Now, I'm reducing my own screen here so that the video is still at least better and clearer than that of yesterday. So, in case you can't see me very well, and you are just understand that I'm doing that so that our session today can go smoothly. Okay, so society begins to dictate to you and begin to tell you what you need to do. Society begins to condition you. Society begins to give you their own programming. In Yoruba land, where I come from, they say that it takes a society to raise a child. What does that mean? It means that some of the programming you will have in your life may not come from your family, may not come from your religion, may not come from the education, from your learning. Some of the programming you will get to find yourself in may come from the society you find yourself in. And it's important you are aware of that. Now, I need to know if I'm still, if you can still hear me, please drop a comment in the drop a comment below so that I know that you can still hear me. It appears I'm the only one here right now. Well, the reason why I'm saying that is I'm trying to view my this thing here, and I'm seeing that I okay. So if you are with me, please let me know in the comments that you're still with me. I'm trying to check something here so that I know. Okay, good. So everything seems to be working fine. And there seems to be some strain on my network. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. That used to be a song that we used to sing many years ago. So let me quickly listen to this and be sure. So again, if you are still with me, please leave a comment. Let me know that you are still with me. And be sure that everything is going great. Okay, thank you. Now I can see some comments, so I know that people are here now. Okay, great. Thank you, Bisala. Thank you, Lillian. Good to have you here again today. So if we move forward, we'll look at the last conditioning, which we get to, the last programming, which happens to be workplace conditioning. And the workplace simply means that you get to that point where it tends to appear like there's only a type of work that you can do. There is a type of, for example, a regular programming that we are given when it comes to the workplace happens to be that you need to be a specialist. And when I say specialist, they will tell you that you need to toe one line. That is, you need to do. Sometimes that workplace could also be attached to religion, such that they will tell you that this one thing you should do for the rest of your life. And so maybe you are like me. Many years ago, I was in 2005. If I'm correct, that should be in 2000 in 2002, 3, 4. So I started a business, and in 2005, when I got into the university, I began to run the business in school until I got into some circles, and they told me that you cannot combine the work of God with another thing. So you have to only do the work of God. And so that made me to shut down a company that I was running at that point. And I shut it down because I simply wanted to do the work of God. And for a very long time, I didn't understand that you don't necessarily have to shut down your work in order to carry. So I needed to mention that to help you understand that there's workplace conditioning, and they condition you, you are programmed in such a way that you will feel like there's only one type of work you can do. And so when you are not in that type of work, you get to experience some anxiety, some fear, some elements of pain, some elements of resistance, like we talked about in the yesterday. So I want you to understand this. But then when we talk about this programming and this conditioning, there are also levels of evolution as well. And when we talk about levels of evolution, I mean there are different levels of them. So, first level happens to be what I call asleep. Now, when you are asleep, when in your evolutionary journey or in your evolutionary journey, choose the English that's correct for your own community. So when you look at when you are asleep, what naturally happens is you are within the auspices of family conditioning and religious conditioning. And so all of your life you filter it through the lens of family, what your family wants you to do, what your family has told you, perhaps maybe some of the beliefs that your family have sold to you over the years, and also the things that you believe that your religion has told you over the years. And so anytime you want to do anything outside of that, you will feel like you cannot take any step beyond the standards set by your family, the standards set by your religion. At that level, what I call that type of evolution is I call them people who are asleep. So they are basically asleep. And then when we move forward a little, when you begin to understand that religion was only a system that was set in place to 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 organize how people relate with themselves, not exactly how they relate with God. Once you understand that religion is a system put in place in order to organize how people relate with themselves, not particularly relate with God, you will begin to evolve past that level and you begin to become awakened. So it now becomes more like you are entering into some levels of revelation, into some levels of insight, and your eyes begin to open. You begin to see that, oh, wow. So I am not, for example, let me break a little jinx here. Many years ago, I used to think that when Jesus Christ said that if to him that believes anything is possible. I used to think that that statement was meant for Christians alone. Until one day I was reading the Bible and then I asked myself, I said, wait, when Jesus Christ said this statement, was there anybody who was a Christian? I said, no. I said, if there was nobody who was a Christian, could that mean that to him that believes, even if he is not a Christian, even if he's a Buddhist, even if he is a shaman guru, or maybe the person is, um, maybe even the person is a Muslim. So that means that to him that believes, anything is possible. It is not to him who is a Christian that anything is possible. The moment I got that understanding, it just it kind of opened the veil over my eyes, and I was like, "Whoa!" So some of these things are basic laws, basic principles, basic systems that God and Jesus set in place. But then, because we can only see things through the lens with which we view them, I was only saying it through the lens of it is only my religion that this statement is talking to. Do you understand now? But when you get to that level of awakened, you begin to evolve past the religion, you begin to evolve past religion. At the level of awakening, you begin to, when you're awakening, you begin to understand that there is some, there is spirituality and there's religion. While religion is organized to make people relate with themselves within a particular structure, begin to understand that spirituality expands beyond that. Now, when you get to the third level, which I call evolving, at that point you are rapidly evolving. In fact, there's a fourth level which I call highly evolved, and there are characteristics of each level as well. Now, when you are asleep, one of the things you begin to notice is that you begin to feel like a victim. You begin to feel like, or you are feeling stuck. You feel like there's lack of fulfillment. Why? Because you are simply asleep. The giant that is inside of you has not stood up yet, have not risen up yet. You have not rise or risen up in order to take your place at the seat of life. You have not decided to get up and wake up, begin to do the things that truly matter to you. Now, when you get to the level of awakened, at that level, you begin to question things because your awareness is expanding. You begin to question a lot of things that you have been told. In fact, at that point, if you remember, as I shared earlier on, it was at that point of awakening that I got the awareness that when God said that in Genesis 11, when God said that, I'm trying to remember exactly when He said that, now let us go down and scatter them, because nothing, if people can come together and imagine to do these things, nothing they imagine to do will be impossible to them. Now, when I was at the level, when I was still asleep, I used to think that that was simply talking to Christians. But I also understood at that point that there was no Christianity when God said that. So it means that when people, natural people, humans come together, there's nothing they agree and decide to do that will be impossible to them. At that point, I began to question a lot of things. I began to question a lot of things I was taught, a lot of religious content that I was taught. I began to question a lot of them. And it was also at that point I began to unlearn a lot of things. I began to say, this paradigm is no longer going to work for me. I need to begin to develop and work with a new paradigm. I need to begin to develop and work with new meta programs, new belief systems that I'm going to live my life by. So no one who doesn't live my life is going to now begin to tell me how best it is to truly enjoy and live my life. You are getting me. Now, when you get to the third level, which is the level of evolving, at that point, you begin to experience what I call emotional healing. And when I say emotional healing, at that point, you maybe you've had pain, trauma, you've had some elements of abuse. It At the level of evolving, it tends to look like you are having a therapy session, but the therapist is not someone who is physical. The therapist happens to be somebody who is internal, somebody who is inside of you. So as you begin to evolve, a lot of closure begin to happen. A lot of repressed issues begin to become solved. A lot of challenges that you've probably just filed away somewhere, they begin to become taken care of. Why? Because you are evolving. Because you are evolving. And now we get to the next level, which is highly evolved. Now, when you get to this level of highly evolved, what happens is you have the characteristics which is referred to as integrity. And as I always say in my classes, integrity does not mean honesty. Integrity does not mean that you are being truthful. Integrity as a word simply means, if we break down integrity as a word, you find that there's integer. And integer simply means that when something can exist as a single element without having a lot of broken parts. That's what integer means, right? So, for example, 7 is a word that doesn't have broken parts. 1 is a word that doesn't have broken parts, right? 4 can be broken into two equal parts, right? 7 can be broken into multiple parts anyway, depending on the mathematics you are using. But the idea I want you to understand here is when we talk about integer, an integer, and so integrity simply means you are existing as a whole. You are able to bring the life within you and the life outside of you. You are able to bring them into an alignment. And so when you come to that level of alignment, when you come to that level of alignment, that is when you have integrity. At that point, you don't struggle to live authentically. You just live out your authenticity. You don't, at that level, you also don't judge people again. Because at that level, when some things happen, or maybe when something happens to someone, you can understand that that thing is happening to them because that is where they are in their journey. It is not because someone somewhere is punishing them. In fact, you, you begin to understand that it is not a problem of some be trained here. I don't know what's happening. So I'm going to check again. So I'm going to check again. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to check again. Okay, great. I am back. So at this point, let me know. Hope this has been insightful so far. Hope this is interesting. What have you learned so far? Please share that with me. Comment. What have you learned so far? Please share that with me in the comments. Let me know what have you learned so far. What have you learned so far? So please drop a comment. What have you learned so far? What have you learned? What have you learned? Okay, so what have you learned? What's one thing that you have learned from what I've shared here so far? I would like to hear from you. I'd like to read your own answer right now. So what have you learned? What have you learned? Okay, so is anyone typing? Is anyone seeing anything? Okay, let me hold on a little while your comments coming. Okay, so while I wait, I'm going to continue. Okay, and then I'm going to take your so I'm going to take your comments when they come in. So let's move forward. Let's talk about the 5 inner shifts that you need to make if you truly want to become all that God wants you to become. There are 5 inner shifts that, just as with this programming and conditioning right here in the middle here, just as there is, or there are 5 things here, 5 of these, I'm going to break this down so that you can understand how to actually make the shift. How to make the shift. Oh, okay. Delike, welcome, welcome, welcome. You said you came in not too far. Thank you very much. Welcome. Hopefully, you still be able to catch up. And if you don't catch up, you can simply utilize the replay. The replay is going to be here. You will be able to. Okay, so it says I thought I saw something here. It's visible compared to yesterday, but needs improvement. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 inner shifts. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is the family conditioning. And the family conditioning. Now, this is a statement I always make in some of our classes. And I heard this statement first time from my friend Matthew Femi Adedoyin, but I've not been able to trace who said it till now. Maybe I've not done my research well enough. Maybe it was even Matthew that said it. I don't know. But he said that 5 minutes after your birth, they decided your name, they decided your nationality, they decided your religion, they decided your tribe, and you spend the rest of your life defending something you didn't even choose. Thank you, Dile Adeleke. He says, so I get to learn at the level of high evolving state, you create integrity. That's huge. As to what we know it to be. Oh, great, 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 great. We are often taught that integrity simply means being honest, but When I decided to go find out the true meaning of integrity, it never meant being honest, even though it was changed to mean honest. But the original meaning simply means integer, being whole. So the question I want to ask you moving forward from here is 5 minutes after your birth, they decided your name, they decided your nationality, religion, and tribe, and you spend the rest of your life defending something you didn't even choose. Is it possible that you're also fighting battles you didn't choose? Is it possible that you're also fighting battles you didn't create? Someone somewhere created the battle for you, and you are simply running someone else's race. That's a question I would want to ask you right now. Now, moving on, I once read a research by Professor Howard Gardner, which he calls early childhood education. Now, in that research, there's a part called Project Zero Frameworks. And it says up to age 4, almost all the children tested were at the genius level in terms of multiple frames of intelligences, which are spatial, that is, I'm trying to remember spatial. Kinesthetic means touch, musical, interpersonal, mathematical, intrapersonal, and linguistic. Let me read that again. Up to age 4, almost all the children tested were at the genius level in terms of multiple frames of intelligence, which are spatial, kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, mathematical, interpersonal, and linguistic. But then the research found that by the age of 20, the percentage of those who tested at a genius level was down by 10%. And over 20 years of age, the genius level proportion of the subjects had dropped to 2%. Now, you may not understand what this means, so I'm going to explain that to you. When a child is born, according to this research, children are at birth too. So at the time when children are born, up to age 4, children typically are at genius level in terms of multiple frames of intelligence. But then by the time they get to 20, in conditioning that comes from society, conditioning that comes from the kind of things they say they have been told, the kind of beliefs, programmings that we're and when you coach or guide your child, you simply install in that child the ability to create solutions on it with answers on their own. Now, you remember this dimension earlier on, right? So you see that the family conditioning contributes a lot to the level of intelligence, the level of genius that a child or a normal human being has. Now, immediately after the family, the next thing that contributes is religion. And after religion, the next thing that contributes is learning. Talk about society. Sometimes what I'm referring to is some people's the kind of society they are in does not encourage the kind of thing they want to do. Some of them are people like myself. Some of us, the society that we are in, this Nigeria is not the right environment for us. But we'll see what we can make do with it anyway. Now let's talk about religious conditioning. And I once made a definition in my forthcoming book, The Government of Self. I've been talking about this book for a long time, actually, and I don't think I'm ready to release the book yet, even though the book is completed. The book has been completed as way back as over a year ago. So in that book, I talk about religion, and I say religion in whatever form you have it is a set of projected, is a set of formed belief system in something that's projected to transcend human understanding. And my mentor, Praise Forward, says, if you don't know God for yourself, one man will sell to you a God made in his own image. So while God made us in his own image, men can make God in their own image and they will sell that God to you. And if you are not smart enough, if you are not discerning enough, you will buy the God made in this man's image, you buy it hook, line, and sinker. For example, I stumbled on Indabosk recently and I began to study the dynamics. I began to study the systems that I found there. One of the things that I found, according to my notes here, because I wrote my some of my findings in my notes here. One of the things I find, okay, so one of the things that I found is while the guy is physically short, if it's a very small sized guy, and perhaps he may often be neglected in places that matter, showmanship becomes a way for him to contend for the image that he has lost. So people may not know the guy is very small, the guy is very tiny. And I'm wondering, when did it become that? So Bisola says, I realize I fall under evolving and awakening from what has been taught so far because I still get to question a lot of things on learning and get rid of old or bad habits. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Hey, my guy, my boss, Sam Semako, good to see you here. Where I don't judge people and I try to see reasons. Though most people find me weird at times and healing. Is it possible for me to be on different stages and still be stable? Yes, it is very possible. It is possible for you to be at different stages. The interesting thing is, the more you are evolving, the more you will still be exhibiting behaviors of previous stages. The reason is programming goes beyond just our logical thinking. Programming and conditioning goes deep to our subconscious. So even when sometimes when you are trying to logically ensure everything goes a particular way, sometimes your unconscious brings them to the fore, so to say. And I hope that as we go on, I'm going to be able to answer that question correctly. So, okay, moving forward, let's talk about learning conditioning. What I usually say is you cannot not learn, you are always learning. Every single moment of your life, you are always learning. And the reason why I say you're always learning is because your brain is what does the learning. You can cognitively master something because, of course, there are three levels of mastery. You can master something cognitively, which is where you learn that thing. Now, when it comes to cognitive mastery, You are basically acquiring information. And a lot of times, you don't consciously acquire information, the information seeps in because your brain has a way of processing information into bits and pieces such that it picks the one that's most important. Secondly, it picks the one that is most relatable. Thirdly, it picks the one that is used to, the ones that it can easily identify. And when I talk about your brain picking information in, I'm referring to an organ or a system within the brain called reticular activating system. What you are conscious of, your brain tends to find more of it. When you are not conscious of something, your brain may not consciously present it to your conscious mind, to your forebrain, so that you can begin to see it. But your brain is still aware of a lot of things that are going on around you. And that's why I always say that you are always learning. Whether you are conscious, whether you are unconscious of it, you are always learning. Something is going inside. In fact, let me ask a question here. Has there been a time where you got home and you started singing a song, the song you didn't particularly learn, but you probably were going on the street and you heard the tune, you heard the lyrics, and then you got into your own bedroom when you are silent, when everything is just quiet, and then in the quietness of the noisy mind that you may be having, that song just floats to the fore of your mind, and then you're like, ha! When did I learn this song? Where did this song come from? What you may not know is that when you are not consciously learning, your brain picked up that information. Do you get it now? Second is you never believe a prophecy that does not empower you. All prophecy is learned. In fact, one definition that I have created for prophecy is a fraction of the future that is presented in the now. If anybody gives you a prophecy that is not going to motivate you, that's going to inspire you, that prophecy needs to be discarded. And I deliberately put this under learning conditioning because we learn things, and then the things we learn begin to shape how we live our lives. And so I could have put it under religious conditioning, but I don't want you to see prophecy alone as a religious element. Sometimes a prophecy could be that you got to a place and they said, can this not make anything happen at all? And then that becomes a prophecy that begins to ring at the back of your mind every single moment. That comes to the forefront of your mind, and you're like, this person said, can I do it? And so it now begins to shape your behavior. You remember yesterday I talked about validation seeking behavior, and so it now begins to create validation seeking behavior such that you want to prove to that person that you can do it, that you are worthy of that thing. It's because you simply believed a prophecy that did not, and it's not going to empower you. Third is the goal of education, according to John Piaget, is that education is not to increase the amount of knowledge you gather, but to create the possibilities for a child to invent and discover, to create men who are capable of doing new things. So the purpose of learning, the purpose of education is so that you can do new things, it's so that you can attempt new things. It's not so that you can continue the cycle that has always been before. So the purpose of you being in this session right now is not so that you can go back and still continue your life like you have always continued or like you have always lived. It's so that you can go back and begin to consider new possibilities, new things. And that's was why I said that education is more of the opening of the mind than acquiring information. The goal of me teaching this to you is to help you open up your mind, is to help you see new possibilities of being and behaving and of living so that you can fully express all that you are. Let me move forward and let's look at the next conditioning, which I call social conditioning. Now, I like to play a video here. And so let me play a video to you, and I want you to carefully, right about now, watch this video. So I'm going to take myself and my slide off the screen, and I'm simply going to play a video for you right about now. Okay.
To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beeps, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her, except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Great, thanks so much.
Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, what began as a random rule for this woman has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room. Here to explain what's going on in their brains is Jonah Berger of the University of Pennsylvania.
This sort of internalized form of herd behavior is part of what we call social learning. Starting at a very early age, when we see members of our group perform a task, our brains literally reward us for following in their footsteps.
When I saw everybody stand up, I felt like I needed to join them. Otherwise, I'm like excluded. Once I decided to go with it, then I felt much more comfortable.
Conformity is how we become socialized, but it can also cause us to develop bad habits or repeat past wrongs.
And it's why even this rebel, who wasn't standing for any of this nonsense, eventually joined the ranks. And the only thing more shocking than seeing how easily conformity affects the way you act is that similar forces are subconsciously shaping the way you think.
Okay, so what did you see from the video? What did you observe from the video? Can you hear me now? I'm back. So what can you see? What did you observe from that video? If the video did not play to the end, please let me know so that I can repeat it again for you. In case the video did not play to the end, please let me know so that I can repeat it. If the video did not play to the end, let me know so I can repeat it. I'm here, so let me know. Were you able to see the video to the end? Did you get to the end? Were you able to see it to the end? If you didn't see it to the end, let me know so that I can share it all over again. Okay. Did you see it to the end? Okay. The end, what was the last thing you saw in the video? So that I know that you actually got to the end. Did you get to the part of a researcher coming on the screen where the researcher walked up to the screen? The reason why I don't know why I'm asking is because I simply clicked play. So it does play to the end. Okay. If you play to the end, that's great. So what do you observe from that video? What do you observe? So just to be sure, so that it's running here while we are conversing. So I'm going to let it run here while we are conversing. So okay, great. The researcher Jenberg, amazing, amazing, amazing. I needed to be sure that it got to the end. So great, great. So what did you observe from the video? Do you observe how people simply just act the way others act without questioning why they are acting that way? Did you observe that? In fact, based on my studies, one of the things I found is this. In the Bible, which we all read, Jesus Christ once said that enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And what I want you to observe here is what Jesus says is that few find it. Why is it that narrow gate, only a few will find it, when Jesus is telling you that the place for you to enter is the narrow gate? And it says the road that is big, the road that is big leads to destruction, and many people enter through it. But the gate that is small, that's the one that leads to life, and that is the one that I want you to enter through. Now, here's what I wanted to notice from what Jesus Christ said. Jesus Christ was not doing a play on words. What he was saying was that, and what I want you to understand from what Jesus said is this: if you want to go the path that everybody is going, all you need to do is to enter into something. You don't need to find something. And what does finding require? If you are going to find something, you would need to search, isn't it? So that means if you are going to search, you need to know exactly what you are looking for. You simply engage your mind in order to find something. You engage the help of some light, some lamp, in order to find something, right? But when you are entering into something, you don't necessarily have to engage your mind. You simply just follow where every other person is going, and you simply just go along with them. And even though that may be the wide road that leads to destruction that many enter through, you simply just follow them. And Jesus said that what I want you to do is to enter through the narrow gate. The requirement for entering through the narrow gate is to find. In order to find, you need to search. In order to search, you need to engage your mind. In order to engage your mind, you need to know what you are looking for. So could it be that Jesus Christ understood that people can behave in a way that they simply just follow the crowd without considering that not everything that is pop culture or that everybody else is doing will work for me? Perhaps maybe something else will work for me. Is that a possibility? Is it also a possibility that we don't question things simply because every other person is doing it? Simply because everybody you see is doing it a particular way, and you feel compelled such that if you don't do it that way, you will feel like you're the odd one out. Of course, there's a bias around that, isn't it? I want you to think about that right now. And here's the task for today. Here's the task I want to give you for today. So, what I want you to do is to pick a paper right now, and in that paper, you simply want to draw out this table. And what you want to do is you want to, first of all, you want to look at, you want to draw the table up there. You want to have a name, and then next you want to have legacy or heritage. What did they leave behind? And then third, you want to see, do I want to be like this? And what I want you to pay attention to is what names are you going to write? You simply want to write the name of your grandparents. And if Dele Adeleke remembers, I've once taught this in the class that you attended sometimes last year, if you remember. Now, what you want to do is you want to write down the name of your grandparents, from paternal grandparents, maternal grandparents. You want to write down their names. And then you want to look at what legacy, what heritage did they leave behind. Write down everything, both positive and negative. And then you want to ask yourself, do I want to be like this? Of course, if they left a lot of positive, you will want to emulate them, isn't it? Remember yesterday we said that success leaves clues, but you don't go ahead copying. Isn't that what we talked about yesterday? Now, do you want to ask yourself, if they left bad heritage, if they left a legacy that is not very interesting, you want to ask yourself, am I going to be like this? Do I really want to be like this? Remember yesterday we talked about what you should do and what you want to do. So now we are beginning to now design what you want to do so that you can have some elements of consciousness in what your life experience is going to look like. And what I mean by consciousness in the life experience is you are not just going to be a pawn in other people's hands. You are the one who is now choosing to design your life in the way you want it to go. So you want to ask the question, do I want to be like this? And you want to answer yes or no. And then lastly, you underneath, rather, you want to look at, you want to write your own name. So you want to write your name, Dayo Samuel. And you want to ask yourself, what do I want to leave behind when I am gone? That is, after I am gone out of this world, when I die, because to be honest, everybody will die anyway. So the better you start preparing for your death, the best for you. Talking about death, you want to ask, what do I want to leave behind? And I want you to list the things you want to leave behind. Some of the things you want to leave behind don't necessarily need to be physical. They might be just ideas, ideologies. Some people, the best thing they will leave behind for their children will be passwords. And talking about leaving things behind, I remember reading a book, and the book was very instructive when it comes to leaving things behind. And I hope that you can see the title here right now. This is the title of the book. It's called Living Forward. And the author is Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. Now, in the book, they actually say something about leaving something behind good. So it was a quote by Steve Jobs that I saw. And this, I think I read this book if I'm correct, when did I initially buy this book? I must have bought it maybe 3 or 4 years ago or so. In 2016. I bought it June 2016. And Steve Jobs said, all external expectations, all pride. Let me bring myself a little to the screen. Just all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. This is it right here. Okay, it's not clear for the screen. It's all right. But this is the book. This is the book here. I recommend you get a copy for yourself. Maybe I'm going to leave a link to the book where you can get it on Amazon. Maybe I'm going to leave a link in the comments of this video so that some people can pick it up. Now, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what do I want to leave behind? Because the truth is, once you begin to think of your death, your approach to life begins to change. I remember when I first got married and I started telling my wife that when I die, that this is this, and she was like, "Are you ready to die?" I said, "No, I'm not ready to die. I'm just letting you know that these are the things that I want to leave behind, so that when I die, people can continue some things that I've started." And I told her that that's one of the reasons why I am in business. I'm not in business because I want to just make money. I'm in business because I am building a legacy. I am married to this particular person because I want to build a legacy. Do you get it? So I'm designing my life right now in order to leave a legacy behind. And then after you have listed the things you want to leave behind, you want to ask yourself, which of these am I doing now? And if you're not doing any of them, you need to ask yourself, why am I not doing any of these things right now? So that is where I'm going to end tonight's session. Not like I'm ending the stream anyway, just that that's where I'm going to stop the conversation today. I'm going to pause it here, and then tomorrow, which is Friday, I'm going to be joining my friend and my client, Chris Annie. I'm going to be joining him live on a Zoom call. So I'm going to be streaming that directly to my YouTube here so that you can be a part of that conversation. We're going to be talking about, if I remember very well, that's dominion and systems thinking. And that is in this journey of inner evolution, there's a level of systems thinking that you will need if you truly want to get to that point where you will completely actualize all that you want to be. And when we talk about systems, which is not something a lot of people talk about around here anyway, because a lot of people are so focused on the survival that they want to survive. And so there's no time to talk about systems. So why should we be talking about systems when we need to hustle? You remember what I talked about yesterday? When the role you are playing in your life is that of a struggler. So you're basically just living everyday life in order to hustle. Anyway, so let's pause this conversation here. And at this point, I want to take your questions. I want to take your comments. I want to take your comment. I want to take your questions. So Dede Adeleke says, I observe that humans are shaped based on how others present themselves at first. That is correct. That is correct. I'm trying to see if I can be looking at the screen at the same time as looking at the comments, but my camera is here while my laptop is here. So, Daily Adeleke says we form conformity by socializing with the set rules on ground. That is true. It's called conformity bias. In fact, when we talk about conformity bias, it also means that the first conditioning we meet in our lives, which is the conditioning that comes from our family, when a child is growing up, when a child just newly comes to this earth, after the child begins to, by the 4th month, the child's brain, the child's cognitive process begins to develop. Now, as the child cognitive process begins to develop, one of the things you begin to notice is that the child wants to, well, as the child continues to grow, perhaps maybe around 1 year or 2 years old or so, the child now tries to ensure that our behavior makes daddy happy, our behavior makes mommy happy. So she starts forming that conformity bias, that is, I want to behave a certain way so that I can be accepted by my father. I want to behave a certain way so that I can be accepted by my mother. And the interesting thing is that sometimes, if that is not carefully monitored, it can create a form of dependency such that the child now completely depends on people in order to validate who she is. And in my work of being a therapist, I've seen cases where this was the major reason why people, or some people, were behaving the way they were, because they didn't enjoy the love of their father, they didn't enjoy the love of their mother, and so they are practically looking everywhere for the love of their father, the love of their mother. And so when a lady, for example, when a guy, for example, falls in love with a lady who looks like his mom, he begins to look for the qualities in his mom that he used to enjoy that he is missing. It's part of that conformity bias. And I hope that is helpful to you. So Dele Adeleke again says that we have been conditioned not to ask why things are the way they are. That's very correct. And it says that this moves us back to the pyramid of evolving, only where we are moving on to life actualization. Amazing. Sam Semako, thank you, boss. That's my God top. Says thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What are the series of events in your life that inspired this teaching? Series of events in my life. Well, I told a story yesterday, and the story that I told yesterday was the story of me battling a particular addiction. And I'm not shy to say it anymore. The addiction of masturbation. I was addicted to masturbation for many years. I mean, even when in 2012, when we met in 2012, and when we physically met eventually in 2015, all through that time, I was still battling masturbation as an addiction. I mean, I was so addicted to masturbation that it was an outlet for me. And when I decided to begin to study myself, to begin to find out what are the things that, or why do I masturbate? Why do I behave this way? Why does this tend to? In fact, at one point, I remember that at one point, in the process of studying myself, I found that what gets me to masturbate was simply the fact that I am curious. I'm curious. I want to find out how something is going. And so let's say I want to find out how breasts, for example, maybe I'm listening to a conversation and I heard the size of breast, and I will go on Google to go find out how does the breast size of so look like. And I want to look for video. And instead of looking for video, I will stumble on pornography, and I will so enjoy the pornography and be to masturbate. I found that that was the pattern that was running in my life. So, as I was beginning to understand this pattern or the patterns that were shaping my life, I began to at first, I wasn't doing anything in order to teach people. I was basically just doing them in order for me to understand what was going on. And just as I've always done since my early 2000s, I always document. I always have a note. In fact, if you look at this side of my, if you look at this side here, look at this side, look at this side right now, you see that there are a lot of notebooks there. So I began to document and began to document what was going on in my life. I began to write down my own life experiences. I began to, okay, you remember some minutes ago, maybe you were not here. I actually said that on the 4th of May this month, that's 4th of May this year, just maybe like some 17 days ago, I was studying the guy in Daboski. I was studying the entire concept of Daboski. And I was studying the man who created it and what made it to become a phenomenon. And I was making notes while studying. So sometimes I just find things out. And that's the reason I could function, or not the best way anyway. One of the ways I could function would be to run a research institute, which was what made me to now split the company that I was running and create a research institute by the side that, okay, a research institute going to continue to run, which is going to find a lot of these things and document them. And perhaps maybe one day I'm going to start teaching them. So what led to this teaching, the development of this teaching, is the fact that I wanted to simply understand why I was battling the things I was battling with. So, for example, if I take you back to the framework that I just shared with you, this personal evolution model. So, let me look for the particular slide here. So, let me bring this slide back on screen so that you can see what I need to refer to here. Right away. Great. So, if you look at this slide right now, and if I'm going to use this slide to explain how my life evolved when it comes to that particular addiction of masturbation, where my programming, the first programming of masturbation did not start from society. It didn't start from the workplace, so to say. It didn't start from the environment I found myself, which is society. It didn't even find, of course, the environment I found myself then was, how should I call it now? I should say the school I was in, which I can categorize as there. It actually started from family. So the programming, the initial operating system for me to masturbate was installed via the programming of family. My dad did not do it. My mom did not do it. Till today, I'm yet to know who did it. But what happened was I stepped into my house after school one day. I was still in primary school, if I'm correct. Yes, I was still in primary school then. And of course, I was one of the best students in my school then. So I stepped in, and then I wanted to play a video. So I turned on the TV. I turned on the video cassette player first. I saw that there was a video cassette inside. So I just said, oh, let me watch what is inside. So I was now fiddling with remote while the video had started playing. And in fact, as I'm saying it right now, I'm even remembering almost everything as it was happening that particular day. It was one bogus TV, one big TV like that. It was one big TV like that. Of course, it was big TVs that we were using those days. So after I turned on, by the time I got the TV to turn on, I discovered that it was a pornographic video cassette that was in that video cassette player. Who put it there? I don't know. How did it get there? I don't know. But I got interested in what I was seeing. So I sat down, and out of my naivety of being a student, primary school student, I just sat there and saw it. Oh, really? Interesting. Interesting. And so, okay, no, it was not primary school. I was in secondary school, I remember. Yes, I was in secondary school. I think I was in GSS, if I'm correct. And I sat down and began to watch. And I 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 wanted an outlet. And that was how I began to, in the video, I saw that they were playing, and that was how I decided to try it. And that was how the programming started. That was how the conditioning, the behavior began. And then now, when it comes to religion, in the process of me trying to do away with it, I began to pray. I began to pray to God that, God, please take this thing away. I don't want to do it again, because anytime I do it, I feel guilty, I feel shameful. And if you have seen some of my videos where I talk about the concept of shame, you find that shame itself does not have so much to do about what you did as it has to do about who you see yourself as in that particular context. So regret is about what you do. Guilt is about what you did. No, guilt, you feel guilty for what you did. You feel regret for what you did not do, but you feel shameful about who you are. So when it touches your identity like that, if you associate negativity with it, a kind of creates, and I say it, and that begins to become something you do every time that behavior shows up. Then I began to pray and pray that God should take it away, and God was not taking it away. So I felt maybe this was not going to help anyway. I even remember that about this, and we're having a program, and our pastor was talking about masturbation being a sin, and I was like, "Oh my God, so I'm a sinner." For the first time, I didn't know that, and so when I got to understand all that, now it was when I got tired and fed up that I said I need to find solution. And so I went through programs and programs and programs looking for solutions for myself. Interestingly, I didn't actually enroll in a program about masturbation. I went into a program about why we behave the way we do. And so as I began to understand this in order to help myself, began to shape technology, began to shape the concepts. And so that was how gradually I began to form this entire teaching. And this teaching is just one bit out of an entire whole. There's still a lot that, of course, because Reverend Sam Adiemi once told us that no matter how long you do a program, you cannot finish everything you want to teach in one single program. So I don't struggle again to teach everything at the legacy. That is part of the legacy that I'm saying I'm building. Part of the legacy will be that there are discoveries, there are things that I find. I may not publish them in my lifetime, but they will be helpful to people who will come after me. That is part of my legacy. So thank you for that question. That question sent me on a path. Wow, 8 minutes of answering that question. So thank you very much for answering that question. And I hope that the question, oh, it says thanks for your vulnerability. Thank you very much. I didn't like to share this story before because I used to feel like I needed to look perfect. I needed to look a particular way. But one day, I learned that secret about yourself that people share is what creates scandal. But secret about yourself that you share is basically piece of information. It doesn't make somebody go out in it doesn't turn on the alarm mode in somebody's head. But when other people share it, the alarm mode goes on and they're like, I'm wary of that guy. I don't know what he's going to do next. But when you share it yourself, it's just piece of information. And in fact, if you share it in the way I've learned to share it, it becomes a story that helps validate what you are teaching. So again, thank you very, very much for that question. That question has taken me on a journey. And hopefully that question is going to be helpful to others as well. So at this point, if there are questions you would like me to answer, please go ahead and ask right now. Let me take your questions. So let me take your questions. Questions require answer. And so questions that I ask is questions that is what answers will be given to. So at this point, there's no I don't tend I don't seem to see any questions here. So in case you are trying to ask questions and it appears I'm not answering, please understand that it's not because I don't want to answer. Please, if there are any questions that you would like to ask, in case so that I don't elongate this stream, this session, you can leave them as a comment down below this video. And I hope that this video has been helpful to you. I hope that this particular session has been helpful to you. Again, I want you to go ahead and this live stream. Again, if this has been helpful to you, please you can share it with someone. You can let someone know that they can be a part of tomorrow's session. Tomorrow's session, we are going to be talking about systems thinking. How in your journey of personal evolution, you need to begin to think in terms of systems, such that, for example, I've come to the point where when I want to teach, there's a system behind how I teach. There's a system behind how I create content. So and in fact, if you're interested in that, you can check my channel here. There's a video that I created on content creation. So there's my belief, and what I have seen in my own research is that systems rule the entire human experience. And so, how you can create systems for yourself, how you can create systems for your life, how you can create systems for the different things that are running in your life. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about that. And hopefully, it's going to be as helpful to you as well. Thank you very, very much. Daily at Daily Cases. Wow, this is another opportunity to learn from you again, sir. Thank you, too. Thank you very, very much. Mrs. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Thank you too for joining me in this live stream. Hopefully, it is going to be clear enough, and I hope so. From my own checking here, everything seems to be working very fine. So this is Dayo Samuel. On this channel, what I do is I help people with three things. One is personal transformation. Second is mental and emotional well-being. And third is shift their consciousness to a higher level. And I hope that I've been able to do that with this particular video. If you're able to do that, please remember to subscribe. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you can be a part of the conversation we are having here. And as always, remember to live your life without limits. I am Dayo Samuel. I'll see you in the next session, which is happening just about, at this point, in about 23 hours time. See you tomorrow.